It's the HoopWise podcast from New England Basketball Journal, a comprehensive look at the basketball landscape in New England, tracking prospects, recruiting, college, and more, with your hosts, Steve Hewitt and Ethan Fuller.
Hello and welcome back to the HoopWise podcast. I'm Steve Hewitt, as always, joined by Ethan Fuller. We are the New England Basketball Journal. We're joined once again by a very, very special guest. He is the founder of Prep Athletics, which has helped place hundreds of student athletes and recruits into prep schools around the country. He is a former coach at several stops, a former player. Let's please welcome to the show from all the way out in the mountains of outside of Denver, Colorado, Cory Heitz. Welcome to the show, Cory. How are you doing?
Good, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Doing great.
We're good.
How you doing, Ethan? Good?
I'm good. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, this should be fun.
We talked a little bit before this episode, and that conversation alone was fascinating, so I think this one will be really good.
Yeah. Cory, just to start it off, I know you've been a fixture of this space since, 2008 is when Prep Athletics was founded. But for maybe our listeners or viewers that might not be as familiar with you and your work, can you just tell us maybe a little bit about your background and how you got into this space and what it's been like over the last 2 decades for the most part here?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. Big fan of the show. I've been listening to it since its inception. So thanks for all you do is spreading the good word.
All right.
About
basketball. Yeah.
Yeah. So my background, I'm from, I'm born and raised in West Virginia for about 11 years and then moved to Lexington, Kentucky. And, was there till I was 18 and graduated high school. And I played on a really good high school team when I was a freshman, and halfway through my sophomore year, I transferred to a better fitting Catholic school, right, called Lexington Catholic, which eventually became, a couple years after I graduated, a national powerhouse. And while I was there, I had teammates that went to Kentucky, Georgia, Notre Dame, UNC Greensboro, a couple of D3 schools. And a couple years after I left, our team got up to third in the nation in the rankings. So those kids were freshmen when I was a senior. And my goal was to play D1, right? I was a D1 or bust kid because I had 5 members of my family before me play D1, right? So I just assumed it was my right. And my dad was 7 feet tall. He played at West Virginia before playing pro in Europe. His older brother was 6'11", played at Oklahoma. Their baby brother was 6'10", played at Kentucky, then got drafted by the Pacers. My cousin, Renee Miller, she's 6'4", played at Morehead State. And then my cousin Brad Miller, 7 feet tall, who played 4 years at Purdue, 14 years in the NBA. So I just assumed I was going to be on that same path. And I graduated high school at 6'7", 195 pounds, and I backed up an All-American for 3 years. So I just needed more development. And I had a lot of D1s reaching out saying, hey, if you grow like your dad and the rest of your family, we've got a spot for you. So I was going to go to prep school, grow, and then go play at West Virginia like my dad did. And I went to the Air Force Academy's prep school because really at that time, the only D1s that were recruiting me were military academies. And I marketed myself as the white David Robinson, right? And for those that don't know, David Robinson went to the Naval Academy at 6'6", hit a growth spurt there to become 7'1", and eventual National Player of the Year, first pick in the NBA draft, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, hey, look, I'm the white David Robinson. Look at my genetics, right? It's going to happen. I'm going to hit my spurt. You're going to be lucky to have me. And I got to Air Force's prep school for that post-grad year and realized, I should probably just stay at Air Force. This is probably the best I can do. And, played in that program, was an officer for 5 years after that, and then became a coach. But the reason I went to that prep school is because my cousin Brad Miller, his senior year of high school, he went to a prep school in Maine called MCI, Maine Central Institute, which back in the 90s was a national powerhouse, coached by Max Good, right? So back in the day, it was Fork Union, Winchendon, MCI, or St. Thomas More were just some of the heavy hitters back then. And Brad went there. Brad's dad wasn't in the picture, but the coach up there, Max Good, became his father figure. And Brad has said many times without prep school, he would not have made it to the NBA, right? So Brad was a year older than me. I kind of saw what the benefits were for him. And so I knew if I wanted to play D1, I needed to do a post-grad year myself. And what I tell families all the time, guys, is without those 2 experiences, he's not in the NBA, I'm not playing D1. So prep schools changed our family's entire trajectory, right? So I try to tell families, like, it's no guarantee it's going to happen for you, but it worked for me. And if you are going to look at these options in the prep school world, let me help you talk to the right fitting ones. So after coaching, I got to Kentucky after coaching in Canada a little bit. and started helping kids go to prep school, right? I helped a kid in Canada I coached go to prep school. He went to MCI where Brad went and got a full NAI scholarship out of that. Started helping a couple Kentucky kids I knew that were good get to prep school. And then lo and behold, they got, D1 rides or full rides out of it. And then just started, visiting schools, asking more questions, talking to college coaches. And then here we are 17 years later, and it accidentally turned into an international consulting company. And every day I wake up just excited to check my inbox to see who's reaching out today or who's calling me or who's texting me, because I'm so passionate about this world and all the benefits that prep schools can provide to kids. And that's why I try to get on and talk to guys like you to just spread the word and let people know that this is a great option if you're the right candidate. And if you are, I can help you find the right fit.
Yeah. I think that's a really cool way to start this. Cory, you, even in kind of discussing some of the places you've been and the schools that you've mentioned that were powerhouses in the past, I feel like in my limited knowledge of the history of prep schools, it is so different even from 15, 20, 30 years ago. The scope of how many prep schools are looking nationally, the amount that are competitive nationally, some of the names that we're seeing that are different from the ones that you said. In your opinion, what do you think has changed the most about just like the landscape and the competitive nature of prep schools in general and the spotlight that's on them now? What do you think about how everything's changed?
I think more people know about them now. I mean, I didn't grow up in New England, so I didn't know about prep schools until 1994 when my cousin decided to go to MCI. And the only reason we did that is because my high school coach played college ball for the coach at MCI, right? So it's only through that freak connection we even got introduced to this world. But fast forward to the times we're in now, and you've got social media, you've got the teams playing on ESPN, you've got all these players in the NBA now that have gone to prep school. So it's global now. Like half my clients this year, it's gone up more than the past, are international because they want to play in college and they want to get to the NBA, and they know, sure, they can take the route some international players went, but they also want a chance to potentially get an NIL deal or play in March Madness, right? So they know to do that, the best chance is to come to an American prep school and get seen by college coaches and get placed by a prep school coach. I know even in the 17 years I've been doing this, the coaching has just gotten so much better, right? You've got pros coming out of smaller divisions now, not just the AAA. You got them coming from prep schools outside of New England. So if you're good enough and you want to get good competition, good coaching, good exposure, and ready for the collegiate level, to me, prep schools is the best way to do it.
We around here, we see kind of the jumps that a lot of the, and obviously we're only a few years into this, but every spring there's kids jumping from public schools in Massachusetts MIAA up into NEPSAC. And it feels like maybe, I don't know if it's going up every year, but it's a significant amount. It's like dozens of kids making this move. I guess we'll get into the nitty gritty. I guess every situation is different for each kid and their goals and aspirations. But what are some of the factors, I guess? Are there any common denominators about kind of just the factors that go into such a decision for these families that are making obviously life-changing decisions for their kids? Like what are some of the factors that you've seen maybe even evolve over the last 2 decades that are the biggest sort of factors in making that kind of decision and life-changing decision?
Yeah, we got to look at it like you're a prep school coach or a prep school admission officer, and what kind of kids do we want on our team and in our campus, right? And each prep school has its own personality and kind of what they want in a player and a kid, right? So to me, when I look at, a family that reaches out to me, I'll look and see how good the kid is on the court. I'll see how competent they are in the classroom. I'll find out what kind of experience they want and what their goals are. And then the biggest elephant in the room is always finances, right? And I'll ask them, how much they're willing to invest in this experience. The finance is a big killer for a lot of people. Now, if you have no money, but your kid is a good player, they got good grades, or they maybe have an interesting story, or they're from an area not as well represented in the prep school world, there's a chance to potentially get a very good scholarship / financial aid package, right? If you're a wealthy family that can just write a check for $75,000, you're going to have a lot of options too. It's that in that middle area, right, where you're middle class, and we'll throw around like coaches and I throw around numbers all the time, which is crazy. We'll be like, hey, if the kid can pay $35,000, we'd be interested. That's a lot of money for most families out there, right? Especially the middle class families. Like that's a big chunk. and they can't always make that investment. So to me, part of what I do for families too is I'm just honest, and I'm like, all right, you might invest this amount of money, you might not bump up a level, right? Are you okay with that? You will get benefits on the court, in the classroom. You'll mature emotionally. You'll meet kids from all over the place. Is that worth it to you? Not knowing what the outcome's going to be. Because a big thing of what I tell these kids nowadays, guys, is there's no crystal ball. We have no idea when this year's over or your career's over in the prep school world, what level you're going to be at. With NIL, with the transfer portal, with the game getting so much older, it's hard to tell. I mean, you still see guys getting D1 offers, right, at all different levels coming out of prep school. It happens, right? But I've had kids that have gone in and they've been a D3 player that come out a D3 player, right? I've had kids going in with not even a D3 offer, coming out with a D1 offer, right? It's every kid and situation's different. But the great Alex Pope, who's now at Winchendon, has said something that's always stuck in my head, and it's true. You've got to be an interesting kid, right? You can't just be good at basketball. You also have to have good grades, or have your own side business, or play an instrument, or be bilingual, or be from a state not as represented in the prep school world. If you guys go into a prep school cafeteria, you will see flags up. Maybe it's a cafeteria, maybe it's a grand atrium, and that's from all the states represented and all the countries represented, right? Prep schools are in an arms race for kids, so they want more flags, right, to show they're more diverse, they're more cultural. They will give aid to kids, right, that are from regions not represented at their school to bring a different perspective to the school. Now, that might not be as much for the need-based schools, but the merit-based schools are always looking to make themselves more diversified, right? So looking at all these factors for a kid and finding out what they want too is key. Like if a family's hell-bent on D1 or bust, I'm not going to make that guarantee, and almost every prep school coach won't either, right? Even if they're 7 foot with previous D1 offers, like we don't know how this year is going to turn out. So it's a long-winded answer, but there's no crystal ball in this. You have to be good in the classroom. You have to be good on the court. You have to be interesting. You might have to have some financial aid behind you to help support this, but it's not always fair. But guess what? Every time you bump up a level, there's less and less spots, right? So why, as a coach, going to invest money in you or time into you? Like, what are you going to bring to the school and program, right? So that's the question I pose to families, and they got to answer it, right?
You touched on this a little bit, and I have really wanted to ask you about this because this is something I've learned and continued to struggle to understand as I've understood the prep school world, is how the financial aspect actually works. And I think a lot of people maybe on the outside just see it as like, oh, it's kind of scholarships, but they just don't call it scholarships. But no, there is actually like a legitimate kind of financial aid component. I was reading one of your blog posts. There is a merit-based component depending on the school. They kind of sort out different ways. I know that's another large conversation, but if there's a way that you can succinctly like demystify all of that, how would you explain to people like this is the way financially it kind of works out for prep schools and for basketball players specifically?
Yeah, there's two models out there, need-based and merit-based, right? The need-based schools, you have to fill out financial aid form, and this is done online. Parents have to, talk about their assets. They have to put in their salaries. They got to put in 2 years of previous tax returns, and then this website will go through its algorithm and spit out a number. And what that number is at a need-based school, that's what you're going to pay, right? They might have a little merit here and there to give out. They get creative with it. I don't know all the ins and outs of how they give aid on top of the financial need-based aid, but they do it. So that's the number you get right there. Merit-based, we usually see that same number as well, but then they'll be like, okay, you're from a state not represented or a country not represented here. We're going to give you a little cash for that. Oh, you've got a 1350 SAT score. We might give you a little cash for that. Oh, you've already got a couple of D1 offers, which means our coach won't have to work as hard placing you. We might give you some aid for that as well, right? So every school does it differently. Every coach does it differently. The way I approach it with my clients is I ask them, what's the max amount you're willing to invest in this year? Right? And guess what? The bigger you are and the better you are, the less you have to pay. All right. I will sometimes have prep school coaches call me and say, do you have a 7 foot high major kid that can be full pay? And I laugh because that's a unicorn, right? That guy does not have to pay. If it's a 7 footer with high major offers, you can probably get him into a place, for 5 to 15K. And he warrants that because that kid's going to bring coaches into the gym. That's going to bring other players who will want to play with that kid, right? So he brings value to the school. If you're a 5'9" guard with a 2.8 GPA from Connecticut with no offers, you're probably going to pay full price because you're not bringing any coach to the gym. It's going to be very hard to place you in college. It's going to be a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of bandwidth, right? So for the merit-based schools, you have to think from a coach's perspective, what am I getting out of this kid? Like, what's he bringing to my team? Are we going to win or not? How hard is it going to be to place them? What is the family's expectations? And so every kid's a case by case basis. So the big thing is if you're doing this on your own, make sure you come up with the max number you're willing to invest, and then figure out if the school is need based or merit based, right? And how do you figure that out? I know what they all are. I know a lot of other coaches do, but get that out of the way pretty quickly when you're reaching out to coaches so you don't waste your time, right? Because there are families that won't qualify for any aid, but they don't have $75,000, right? Due to one thing or another. And that's where they want to save time and make sure they're reaching out to the schools that offer merit-based aid. So it's a great world because there's a lot of things that coaches and admission departments won't share with you either. This is just a snapshot, but I know enough to be dangerous. So I hope that helps a little bit.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, that's a very honest and one of the more transparent ways to explain it all that I've heard. So that's helpful for me, at least. I think a lot of it too sounds like it reminds me a lot of my own college student application process. And I know when we think about kind of the recruiting aspect of prep schools too, a lot of that is like college recruiting. And that was a question I had for you too, is how do you compare the collegiate recruiting process to the prep school recruiting process? And what are the most significant differences? Are they pretty similar at this point? How do you look at those two?
So much cleaner at the prep school world, right? Let's look at college right now. You have to recruit your own current players. And then if they leave, you have to go to either high school, prep school, JUCO, transfer portal, international. That's 5 streams right there. Some people are just going transfers. Some people are focusing on JUCO. Some people, a majority of people, aren't even touching or looking at high school players anymore. So that's kind of at the bottom of the pecking order. So I can't imagine being a college assistant or head coach these days with just all the moving parts going on and the speed of it and the money involved now and all the handlers you got to deal with and agents now, which you didn't have to deal with a couple years ago. The prep school world is much easier, right? If you've got a team that's graduating 4 players, right, that are seniors, that coach might only need to fill 4 spots, right? If you're a team that has 2 teams, right, now you got to fill a lot more spots, right? You got to be a lot busier trying to fill those beds, and you might not be as discerning on who you're getting. You might be looking more at dollars and cents, right? There are teams out there like Montverde and IMG that have, I think IMG has over 10 teams, right? And they're a for-profit model. They've got a different way of doing things right now that makes it trickier, and they're working to add numbers to a spreadsheet, right, for a corporation. So all these places are a little bit different, but prep school coaches, some of them get locked up with their rosters in March when the letters go out, kids sign, they're done. Other schools are still trying to fill spots up until the first day of school, right? Because they still might not have beds filled. A couple of players might have taken college offers that came to them during the summer. It just depends. But to me, prep school coaches have a more finite number to choose from, and it's much simpler. And usually when they're recruiting these kids, it's the first time kids have ever been recruited. So they love it. They love getting the attention, and it's a good prep for when they will get recruited for college. But yeah, it's much, much simpler and easier in the prep school world.
Gotcha.
You kind of touched on it a little bit, but the transfer portal, obviously, the last few years in college has been such a big topic, especially right now. The portal just closed recently, and everywhere I see, this is the hardest time it's ever been to be a high school senior, a high school recruit, trying to get into a college and get placed into a college, and even just get an offer.
Yeah.
Patience has been a big virtue for some of these kids, but what has that been is there a trickle down effect for you with that, in terms of trying to place kids into prep schools and sort of preparing them for that process? How does that affect you in the work you do?
Yeah, it only makes prep school more vital, more now than ever before. And here's why. Here's what I tell families that ask that same question: is you need an advocate in this world, right? This college placement, transfers, recruiting, a lot of it, if not most of it, is based on relationships, right? Mm-hmm. Who has great relationships with college coaches? Prep school coaches, right? Because every year they have to place all their players, right? From high major down to high academic D3, and then everything in between. That is part of what you're paying for at prep school, is placement. Now, the caveat is it might not be D1, it might not be D2, it might not be a scholarship, but they're going to find you the right fit at the right time for you, right? So to me, unless if you're a high school player out there and your high school coach is not an advocate, or your AU coach doesn't have the connections, I don't know what you're going to do unless you hire couple college placement services. And there's some good people I work with out there. If anyone needs those, reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to connect you with them. But those guys are a good chunk of change. But once again, if they take you on as a client, they'll be able to place you. There's over 900 colleges in America that have basketball programs, right? So there is a spot out there for you. You might be the 19th guy on a team, right? At a place in the middle of nowhere. You might be in Montana. But if you really want to play college ball, that might be what you need to do. Okay. So it's trickier these days, but that's why who you know is so important. And to me, I say it over and over again, there's no better advocate than a prep school coach.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
One of the other kind of recent evolving trends over the last, I don't know, however many years, several years at least since I've followed it, is reclassing. And that's its own decision within a decision almost of when do you reclass? Should you at all? Do you reclass down? Do you reclass up? What is your general advice on that whole process, when you make the decision and how you go about it?
Yeah. My theory is if you're at a good high school and you like your friends and you're getting developed, stay there, right? Unless there's a big reason to transfer, stay there. Like I transferred halfway through my sophomore year because like the first high school I went to, I was going to play for a Hall of Fame coach, and that Hall of Fame coach retired the summer before I got there, right? So I was then playing under his assistant. We were a good team, but like wasn't getting good development, didn't have any friends at the school because I only went there to play for this Hall of Fame coach, and it wasn't a good fit, right? So we started talking to other schools, and that's when I transferred halfway through my sophomore year. And then when I transferred to Lexington Catholic, I had friends there right away. We were number one in the state. My first game's at Rupp Arena where the Kentucky Wildcats play. It clicked right away, so it was the right fit. So if you're in the right fit right now, I never suggest kids leave their current situation unless them and their family are really dissatisfied with what they've got or they've got higher hopes, right? With that being said, is there a right time? Well, look, I did a post-grad year and it worked out for me, right? And a lot of kids out there just do a post-grad year and they're fine. Coaches and schools would like kids in their program for more than 1 year. And one of the reasons is the speed of the game, the physicality of the game. It takes a lot of kids a year to get used to the prep school style of ball, the speed of it, the physicality of it. And after that first year, the second year you come back, you're more settled in. You know how it works. You can do a lot better things with that, experience behind you, right? If you do it for 3 years or 4 years, you get even more of that, right? So is there a right answer? My answer to that's going to be it depends on every situation. But you have to, in my opinion now, you have to do 5 years of high school, whether it's reclassing, whether it's doing post-grad, you have to get that extra year. And the story I give on that is, my post-grad year, I was lifting the same, I was eating the same, but I put on 20 pounds of muscle, right? Why was that? That's when my DNA turned on and said, Cory, it's time for you to be a man now. And that 20 pounds made a hell of a difference in, me banging down low. It made the game so much easier. And we don't know when boys become men, right? We all know that 14-year-old that's shaving, right? And, looks like he's been through 2 divorces already. And then we also know that kid is 23 that still barely got peach fuzz, right? So everyone's a little bit differently. But that 1 year, whether you're going physically or whether you're getting more skilled or working, out in front of the right college coaches and scouts at the right time, you got to do it, in my opinion. And I think most college coaches will agree with you. There's very few 18-year-olds getting recruited at the higher levels, unless you're, a top 200 player. But you've got to get older because, mind you, here's a stat that I learned recently. Since the COVID, the average age of college players at the D1 level is 18 months older. So
Wow,
think about
that's
that.
actually crazy. Yeah. Dang.
Yeah. I go back to I did the story on Ryder Frost last summer, and he did a repeat junior year, and that was part of it. He wanted to build his physicality up and get bigger. Do the right things, get the right habits down, and it benefited him in a big way in terms of his exposure and his ability. And obviously, he had a huge summer last year and was able to go from pretty much not on the radar at all to go to Notre Dame.
Yep.
So there's a lot of examples like that, I'm sure, right? We talked about this a little bit off camera, but you obviously deal with so many families and reaching out to you. What are the most common questions that you get when you're opening up your email inbox or answering a text or answering a phone call? What are families wanting to know the most? Is it financial? Is it on the court? What coaching? What are the most common sort of things that questions you're getting on a daily basis?
Yeah, well, you hit it on the head there. Like the money piece is pretty
Yeah.
big question in the room, and that usually ends the conversation when they kind of find out the investment's going to cost, right? Because the basketball world, I'm not sure how baseball and football are, but everyone's trying to get a scholarship, right? Which is free. Everyone's trying to get on AAU teams for free or get shoes for free. Like there's a big mindset about getting things for free. I grew up with it too, right? My dad told me point blank, I'm not saving for college. You have to get a scholarship, right? So that's been going on for decades now. So when people see like, oh, I'm at the pay for prep school or pay for you as a consultant, like I'm not doing it. So we lose a lot there with the money talk, and that's fine. This world is not for everybody. Two is always like, hey, what's development going to be like? You know, how much time are we going to have in the gym? What are the coaches going to do to get me better? What's their expertise on that? That's a big one right there. Another one's college placement. Like, hey, how do they place me at the end of the day? But the big one, right, which is the hardest to kind of define, is every family asks about playing time, right? Like, what's our playing time going to be if we're going to invest this time and money sending our son or daughter to prep school? And it depends, right? Like, I can never present the crystal ball and say how much they're going to get. Like, if they're a better player, they should get more. But I've seen plenty of big time players get benched, right, because they weren't doing the work they needed to do. But the cool thing is that everyone has to play a little bit, worst case scenario, right? Because coaches need to get film on these kids in games to show to college coaches. Now, it also is going to depend where you go, right? If you're going to go to Newman, right, and try to play in their main AAA team, and you're not that good, you might be on the last guy on the bench, right? So do you want that experience where you pay maybe 2 minutes a game, or play on their second team and maybe play 25 minutes a game? Right? You're not playing for Jackson Johnson. You might be playing for someone else. But like, these are the kind of conversations I'm having with families all the time. Is like, this school's better. You'd like the coach, but they're more talented. Do you choose to go there or go to this school, which only has one team? You'll play more, but you don't like it as much, right? To me, what I tell my, and this is the thesis sentence that I tell my families, right? All the benefits you get from prep school, you're going to get all these places, right? The development, the weight room, the extra skills. You know, you're going to get the basketball at all the places. You're going to get academics at all the places. You're going to mature at all the places, and you're going to meet kids from different parts of the world at all these places, right? So what's the biggest factor between them all is different? The coach, right? And all these coaches, as you guys know from doing this for a while now, they've all got different personalities, different strengths and weaknesses, right? So to me, I tell my families, go to the prep school based on the coach, right? I don't want you going to a place where you're going to play more and you don't, understand or not on the same page with the coach. But if you're on the same page with the coach you like, and you're not playing as much, you'll get why not. And you'll know he'll still have your back at the end of the day, getting you ready for college and eventually placing you, right? So all these bells and whistles, playing time, I always fall back on which coach do you want to get in that foxhole with? Because the coach is going to be doing, workouts with you. The coach is going to be determining your playing time. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that coach is going to be the guy picking up the phone, calling colleges on your behalf, right? So playing time, it's not guaranteed, because guess what? A lot of these kids that prep school coaches are recruiting, they don't see them in person until the Scholastic Showcase in June or the first open gym in August. So how can they promise playing time, right? It's hard to do, because about half the kids that show up on campus are about as good as the coach thought. 25% are a little bit worse, but 25% have developed during those 5 months and gotten better. Right? So why would you promise playing time? You got to earn it, just like in college, right? You have to earn it, just like in life. So I'm very coy on that. Coaches are very coy on that. So once again, me and parents can help put kids at the prep school. But once you get there, welcome to life. You got to earn it. Things might not be fair. Go take the ball from the kid that's getting more playing time in front of you. All these other platitudes you've heard throughout the years, but it's not always fair. And just all you can control is how hard you go every day and what kind of effort you put in, what kind of teammate you are, what kind of kid you are to get coached by. And that's all you can control. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that honesty too. Cory, this is something else we talked about before this episode that I wanted to kind of bring up again. And you've kind of explained a little bit the family player coach relationship being an important part of this, but there are so many people around a high school player or a high school prospect now, whether that is prep school coach, high school coach, family, AAU coach, individual trainer, possibly depending on how good they are, agent. And I guess how important is it as a player and as a family to keep that circle tight and make sure that you are trusting the people that you trust, honestly? Because I've heard this from players too who have gone through the process, is that like one of the things that helped them kind of stay focused and just kind of stay confident in themselves was that they had people who were honest and people who they could trust around them. So yeah, I imagine you've seen all sorts of places on the spectrum of how that's worked out, but how important is that to you?
Very important. And you got to make sure the person the player is listening to the most has experience. Right. And we talked about this before, is like there's going to be a couple thousand kids in the transfer portal that when it finally closes shop and rosters are filled, their basketball career is over. Right. And they talked to someone and got advice from someone about going in the portal. And now look what that advice led to. Right. The end of a career. And I've had players that I've placed in the past that have gone in the portal and their career is done. Right. And I don't know, not every situation is perfect. Right. We all know that. So people should transfer, but you got to find the right people that have experience, that are going to shoot you straight, that are not being your cheerleader, that are not being biased. The example I like to give on this is American Idol, right? Like everyone's telling these kids they can sing until you get in front of Simon Cowell and he tells you the truth, right? And sometimes that's the first time these singers have ever heard the truth. Well, sometimes kids need to hear the truth, like, hey, you're not as good as you think you are. The recruiting is the truth, right? And maybe not listen to your uncle over there or this AU guy who doesn't know jack, right? Maybe listen to a prep school coach. Listen to a guy who's been doing this. Prep school coaches have to keep their integrity intact, right? So they never call a college coach and say, I think this kid can play for you if he can't, because if he does that, he now loses his integrity with that team, and then he'll never be able to send a kid there in the future. So prep school coaches are very honest, and they're not going to steer kids wrong with, what level they play at, right? And sometimes this is the first time kids have ever heard that. I'm very blunt with families too. And sometimes I'm the first that they've ever heard, of some third world neutral honesty, but they need to hear it. So they're not getting, if I was out there and really wanted to screw a family up, I'd say, yeah, go to this prep school. This coach is great. You're going to get D1. It's going to be all, it's going to be great. That would be a disservice. And there are people out there that cheerlead and do this for kids, not just for prep school, but for AAU and for colleges and other stuff. But you got to be honest with them, right? So if you're a kid out there, find the guy, the one that has been around, who's got experience, and listen to them. Get different opinions, but this is a fast-moving market. Heck, I'm still figuring it out. College coaches are still figuring it out. Agents are still figuring it out. So no one really knows, right? That's the thesis sentence for this whole world. No one really knows what's going on right now, right? So you have to find someone that just, you can trust and then make the best decision possible. But no, there are risks. Right? You might put your name in the portal. You might pick this prep school. It might not be the right fit, or you might not get picked up. But once again, guys, this is also prepping you for life, right? Yeah. Life's not going to be fair. Life's going to be challenging. You're going to have to make decisions without having all the due diligence done or all the information. And I've got prep school kids that have to make prep school choices without knowing everything and how it's going to be. You've got guys like Rick Pitino when he was at Iona, right? When he got hired in the summer, whenever he got hired there, he would call a kid up, offer him and say, you've got 24 hours to accept this offer or not, right? And that's just like life. You have to make business decisions, relationship decisions, all of that, sometimes without all the information and sometimes without all the time you'd like. So to me, like, this is all prepping you for life, right? And it might not work out, but if it doesn't work out, learn from those lessons so it doesn't happen again and grow from that.
It's good.
Cory, I want to get your take on just like New England basketball and NEPSAC as a whole. Obviously, we're in it. This is what we cover. And you place kids all around the country. It's not just NEPSAC in New England, but and we hear all the time, this is best league in the country, best competition. There's so many obviously different levels to it, and from class AAA to B and everything in between. There's so much to offer here. Do you feel like it's the best league in the country?
We want the honest answer too.
What do you think?
We want the honest answer. Don't overhype it.
Yeah. And do you feel, do you find yourself kind of placing more kids into New England, or like, I guess, what's your kind of general sense of NEPSAC and where it stands, I guess, to the rest of the country?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's number one, right?
Okay.
Just because of the volume of schools, and
Yeah.
it's so easy for college coaches to get up there and see so many schools during the course of a week, right? And you've got the history and the infrastructure for it. However, what I tell my families is that ask me the same question is like, we want to be a NEPSAC. And I'll say the same thing I said earlier, like, great, we're going to have some NEPSAC schools you talk to, but we're also going to include some other schools out there too that aren't in NEPSAC. And once again, I want you to pick the best fit based on the coach. And look, any of these prep schools in America, you're going to get all the benefits, right? We just talked about, and you're going to get placed at the end of the day. So what do you want your experience to be, right? I'd still, if you're down to a NEPSAC school and a non-NEPSAC school as your final two schools, and you like the coach better than non-NEPSAC school, go there, right? You're gonna get the benefits. Now, here's something I've been talking about the guys in Ohio and Pennsylvania is they're forming the juggernaut out there, right? So Perkiomen, right, with Coach Harry Moore, they're on the up and up, right? You got Phelps School as a kid, that's going to be in the NBA next year, coming out of Illinois, and you got Blair Academy, which is in the Maple. They're dominant. Hill's pretty good. Then you go over, and you've got the Ohio schools now. You got Western Reserve, who, they won the national title 2 years ago. You've got Andrews Osborne on the up and up. Eli Gorking from South Kent. He knows how to turn that place around. Our boy, Kevin Boyle, left Montverde to join Spire Academy. And you got Erie Prep and ISA, not traditional prep schools, but like if you're a college coach now, you can fly into Cleveland Airport and hit 5 big time programs in the course of 2 days. And then you go down to the military academies. I mean, Hargrave, when I first got into this, I placed a player at Hargrave. He was the last guy on the bench, right? Everyone else before him went D1. So that's 12 D1 players in that team, right? Which means 7 of them were not starting the year they won their national championship. And I went to their practice. It was a knife fight out there every possession, right? My player that was the last guy on the bench went to Glenville State, a D2 school, started 2 years and transferred up D1. So Hargrave had 13 out of 13 D1 players on a roster 1 year, right? IMG sends guys the pros, right? Their top team. So yeah, to me, it all boils down to right fit. I don't care what class NEPSAC it is. I don't care if you're in NEPSAC or not. To me, it's always the right fit. But NEPSAC just does have the volume of the most players in one league. And the coaching is just unbelievable with some of the, the length that some guys have been there, like your Whit LeJours and your Jerry Quinns. So I'd give them a slight bump, but it's not guaranteed it's going to be that way in the future.
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting though.
Yeah.
Just
the rest of the country's catching up a little bit. Huh?
Yeah. It's
I'm
fun.
telling the Ohio guys and Pennsylvania guys, you need to have a showcase now, like either, Perkiomen, Blair, Western Reserve, Spire, whoever, and like have a NEPSAC, non-NEPSAC challenge every year.
Ooh.
I don't know. I'm just an ideas guy. Someone else needs to set it up.
Yeah.
But like have a 5 games, and whoever wins gets that trophy and bragging rights.
Ooh, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think any kind of interleague battle like that is always really fun.
Yeah.
I would support it. I think that's all I got.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Before we move on to our next segment, I wanted to give you a chance. This might be putting you on the spot a little bit because you've been doing this a while, but do you have any favorite like success stories of kids you've placed, or anything that kind of comes to mind of kind of your favorite memories or like cool stories that you've helped kind of facilitate over the course of the years? Like what kind of comes to mind, if anything?
Yeah, I'll give you. There's lots, right?
Yeah,
We could do hours on this.
Yeah.
I'll give you the most impressive one ever is a young man named Louis Tang, right?
Okay.
So for 3 years in a row, I went to Taiwan to work the Nike All Taiwan camp, and I've been helping kids from Taiwan over the years. And I remember the head of Nike came up to me and said, "This young man, Louis Tang, is going to come to America next year and be a great player." And Louis looked terrified. He was the only freshman at the All Taiwan camp. He couldn't speak English, couldn't look me in the eye. And I said, "He's not ready yet. Like, give him a year, then we'll talk. Come back the next year. He's not much better at English, but he's a better player, still the youngest guy there at the camp." And I was like, "All right, we'll do it." And we got him lined up to a prep school in the South. And at the last minute, the prep school said, "His English is not good enough. I know we said we could take him. We can't take him anymore." So we scrambled and found a Chinese English immersion school in Virginia where he went for a whole school year, didn't play at all, just trained every day and learned English, right?
Wow.
So then we placed him at a school called St. Mary's Riken in the WCAC. It's the Washington Catholic League where I used to coach at Gonzaga. You've got Paul VI, Gonzaga, DeMatha, O'Connell, like very similar to the NEPSAC with like just, every team's great. They recruit. It's wild down there. But put him at St. Mary's Riken for 2 years, and which is, arguably the toughest like private school conference in America. And he came out of that being an honor student and getting a D1 scholarship to VMI and starting his freshman year, right? So why I love that story so much is because then he graduated VMI and now he's playing pro in Taiwan. The reason I think that's so interesting is let's us three go to Taiwan and speak no Mandarin and have to take a year off from basketball, right? Learn Mandarin, then go to the top high school, one of the top high school conferences in the country, be good enough to be a D1 player at a military academy, right? Which is high academic, getting honors numbers there and thinking the military is funny, and then going to play pro after that. Of all my kids, I've just never seen someone be that dedicated going from zero English to honor student at one of the hardest universities, military academy on top of that. And then it just, I couldn't be more proud of the kid, right? Because they had a million excuses to not make it, and he did it, right? The other story I'll give is a girl named Alia Cordone from Davis, California, right? 6'2", good grades, blew out her knee senior year, right? So she only played like the last 2 games after she came back from rehab, and then chose to do a post-grad year at Western Reserve, and she had 0 offers. And after kicking butt at Western Reserve for this season, she committed to Cornell a few weeks ago.
Wow.
Right? So 0 offers to Ivy League just can show you what a post-grad year can do. And here's the last thing I want to say. Like I said, I could do success stories all day long, but the thing about post-grad now, guys, that families need to think about is if you're a good player and already have like low major offers, if you do a post-grad year, you have a chance to potentially bump up to a mid or high major offer, right? If you play right and get better and get seen in the right events, which could potentially put hundreds of thousands of dollars in your pocket.
Yeah.
Right. That's the new name of the game now. Like, unfortunately, it used to be all scholarships. Now we're talking big money, and a post-grad year for the right kid could bump up their stock and just, get them a head start on life. Right. So I've only thought about that the past few months, but just something to think about that, like, these the good players from around the U.S. might want to do that now to market themselves a little bit.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
It's amazing.
It's crazy how quickly like the new opportunities are coming up, and just how fast, like I imagine your mindset with a lot of this stuff has to change just because of what people are learning about what's possible with NIL and what can kind of be scary about the NIL world and all the good and bad that comes with that. I imagine it's just like you kind of constantly have to reset yourself and realize what is different and possible in that way, which is pretty crazy.
Hi, I'm Jamie Marcoux, AVP for Athletics at LaSalle University. We're proud to offer 15 NCAA Division III varsity sports teams. And last year, all of our varsity teams advanced to the conference playoffs. Our student athletes excel both on the field and in the classroom. LaSalle offers over 60 majors and minors and is located just 8 miles from Boston. With one of the most affordable private educations and housing ranked #1 in Massachusetts by Niche, we're committed to providing an exceptional college experience. Visit lasalle.edu to learn more.
Let's hand it off to our producer, Dave, for Full Court Press.
I will take the ball and run with it, Steve. Let's go.
Full Court Press.
Now is where the podcast really begins in earnest. Oh, no, what I meant to say was tremendous discussion, Cory, and you're a tremendous guest so far, but this is Full Court Press. This is where we separate the wheat from the chaff, the boys from the men. What we're going to do today is 3 questions, as we always do on 3 Court Press. Our panelists have no idea what I'm going to ask them, and we're going to do the fill-in-the-blank version of Full Court Press, where I just read a sentence and you just fill in the blank any way you want. Doesn't have to be one word, can be many words. Whatever. Okay. As we record this last night, one of the greatest of all time, LeBron James dropped a game with his LA Lakers. And when I say greatest of all time, I'm talking about flopping, of course. One of the great floppers of all time. And I just use that as an entree to say this, fill in the blank. When I see a player flop in basketball, I blank. And Cory, you get to go first on that. When I see a player flop in basketball, I blank.
Hopefully it works. Hopefully you sold it good enough. Yeah, that's
So
I always led the team in charges, so I get taking a charge and putting your body on the line. And if you flop, though, you're trying, and these refs are humans, so if it works, it works. But soccer flopping, I have no patience for.
Oh, okay. So why is basketball flopping different?
They don't do it like in soccer. I feel like it happens like 8 times a game, and in basketball, you might see it once every couple games. And soccer, it's whinier looking.
Yeah.
All right.
As a soccer player, I can attest.
And
to
the stoppage, like it's like a flop in basketball is a couple seconds, and maybe they'll lie on the ground for 10 seconds. But soccer, it's a production when you flop.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, you need to. We'll get to you, Ethan. I can tell you have an opinion, but Steve, when I see a player flop in basketball, I blank. What do you do?
I feel like I cringe.
Good. But tell us why.
Just because, kind of what Cory said, it doesn't happen too often, and these guys aren't very good at it. I think they're not paid actors.
So is this the first year with the anti-flopping violation in the NBA, or maybe the second or something?
I think it's maybe year 2 of it.
Okay, and I feel like it's called very seldom. Am I wrong?
I don't see it.
I would say
often.
pretty rare. I maybe like a handful. I've seen.
Okay, Ethan, how do you finish the sentence when you see a flop?
Mine's going to be kind of similar to Cory. Respect if it works.
Wow, I'm surprised
because I think unless you legislate it out, as I guess there's been an attempt to do, if it is if you are making an attempt to win a possession, that's a winning play, and if you get the call, you've done your job. I know it's not fun for everyone, but if you successfully force a turnover or you get to the free throw line and make your free throws, that is objectively benefiting your team if you flopped and got the call. If you don't get the call, looks silly. But
I used to love taking the charge too, and I'll tell you a really quick funny story. When I was the pledge master of my fraternity, don't worry, this isn't a dark story. One of the things we made our pledges do was if they saw one of the brothers on the main drag on our campus, they would have to have a whistle around their neck, and they would have to try to run up and take the charge as we were just walking down the street, and then get up and make the call.
that's a great idea.
It was terrific. It was fantastic. But
I might just do that.
But the part that's on point is as a high school player, I used to love to take the charge, or at least try to. And I'll admit this: if you get in position or what you think is position, and the player breezes by, and you're already there, then fall down. I mean, yeah, you're gonna fall down. But some of the flops you see LeBron take, I think it's just the algorithm on my real page that I just keep seeing them, because there are a lot of them. He throws himself in the air like he's just been shot in a John Cena action movie or something. I mean, it's anyway. Okay, my pet peeve. I got to get over
That's
it,
fair.
and I'm outvoted here, I guess. Question number 2. We'll go around the bend the other way. Ethan, you get to go first. Also, as we sit here let's see, I don't know if it was last night or the previous night, but either way, the Knicks won a call on a favorable non-call towards the buzzer, which when you watch the 3-pointer that was taken by, who are they playing? The
Pistons.
The Pistons. Yeah. It certainly looked like a foul. The only argument you could make maybe is because of the situation, and it was kind of a desperation heave. But that was a foul. Now, but my question is this. After the game, or the day after, the NBA referees admitted that they made a mistake. And I just think that, and that is not a practice that has existed through history. I don't know when it began, but here's the question. Geez, that was a long-winded question. Post-game corrections by referees are blank. Post-game corrections by referees are blank. What are they, Ethan?
I'm just going to say they're a lose-lose because transparency is good. I am pro transparency. You're also just kind of, you're either pointing out how badly you messed up, which is not great, because then you, like, the fact that you can't really fix your mistake, that's part of the lose-lose.
Yeah.
If you defend it in the last 2-minute report or whatever it is, and then people are still mad about it, then all of a sudden you've opened up like, oh, this, like, do we have to adjust a rule? Yep. Do we have to kind of change our approach to calling this? Are we just kind of covering our butts when, like, maybe we were wrong, but we don't really want to deal with being wrong? And so there's just, it opens up debate, even though I respect the intent of trying to be transparent. There's no winning.
Steve?
Useless and irritating.
Oh, he had 2. All right,
Yeah,
good.
2.
Bonus points.
Yeah.
Use this. Yeah, tell us why.
It just makes me more mad. Like I don't
Right.
I don't need to let's just move on. We can't go back and change history.
Right.
It's I don't know.
Yeah, suppose they could.
There's no point for
You
me.
could still hold a press conference if you want to, and you can just say, "Well, at the time, the referee made the decision that there wasn't enough contact."
My thing has always been they did have the pool report, right?
Yeah.
Let's just put an official every game, not just for specific situations.
Well,
actually, maybe not every game.
have a
but
replay official? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Put them on the podium.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I need to hear them. I need to hear their voice.
But in that play though, there was no mechanism to challenge it, right? I assume the Pistons were out of challenges. Otherwise, they could have challenged that, right?
I don't think so. I don't think they can challenge.
You can't challenge
if it wasn't
a non-call?
If it wasn't called, if it was called, you can go back. And
We should know
challenge
these
it.
things.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's turn it over to Cory.
The rules change every year.
Cory, post-game changes by referees are blank.
I think they're mature, right? It's a lose-lose regardless. You can't change it. But like the biggest thing when I coached was, kids become adults when they could accept responsibility, right? We got leaders all throughout the world that don't do that right now. And I think it's mature and it sucks and it's hard, but they're accepting their responsibility. And I commend that. It is a lose-lose. You guys are both absolutely right. Like you can't change it. You can't review it. But like, I think it is a mature move to kind of put your hand up and say, my bad.
Yeah.
I appreciate the accountability.
Agree on that. You're right. It is mature. And yet, if you're a Pistons fan, it really doesn't make you feel any better. It doesn't, right?
No.
The game is longer than the last 3 seconds, too. So you had plenty of opportunity to win it before that. So.
Yep.
Well, did you see the play in question, Cory? You did?
I did.
Now, is that one where there were, how many refs are there on the court? 3? There are 3.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one where one of the refs should have been heads up enough to grab the other 2 refs and bring them together and say, hey, we really missed this one. We got to call it.
You didn't blow that whistle during the game. Like, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
Right at the end, too.
over.
It's tough. Yeah.
Look, there's fouls on every single possession, right?
Sure.
And kind of they pick and choose when they want to call them, or else the whole game would be fouls, and no one would want to watch that, right? So with that style of play, this is going to happen. This is just collateral for the game being played the way it is. You're not going to get 100% right.
Yeah. Excellent answer. And we're up to the final entry, the final question for 3-Court Press. It is inspired by your Boston Celtics. And in case you missed it, the Boston Celtics just completed a regular season where they broke the record for the number of three-pointers. They broke the record for number of free throw attempts missed. And
Did they?
Yes, they did.
I didn't know that.
They are I'm pretty sure. They are the first team in NBA history to have just completed a regular season where they attempted more 3-point field goals than 2-point field goals. 53%, I believe, was the total. So with that in mind, and we're sitting here probably at the peak, at the crest of the three-pointer boom, but maybe it's not the crest. Maybe we're still going up. So my question is this. In the future, three-pointers in basketball, you can apply this to any level, in the future, three-pointers in basketball will blank. And Cory, you're up first. Three-pointers in the future will blank. Could be anything.
If we're going on statistics, unfortunately, it'll probably keep following this trend because right now the game's being run by folks doing the, crunching the numbers, doing Moneyball, and there is math that makes
nerds.
Sense. Yeah, you take a lot of threes, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to keep going, and I'm not saying I like it or it's good for the game, but I think the trend's going up.
Interesting, Steve.
Yeah,
three-pointers will blank.
I think I agree. Let me try to find a word for it.
Well, it can be a phrase. You don't have to be.
Three-pointers.
We're not pardon the interruption.
Will continue to skyrocket.
Okay,
I would say.
Ooh, headline writer over there. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
Just the trends, and you see. I mean, they're shooting these threes from even farther out. I mean, I might even argue that there's going to be a point where we get a 4-point line.
Oh God, let's not.
Which would change.
Is this like the MTV celebrity basketball game or whatever? Oh God. But you might be right, Ethan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Ethan. In the future, three-pointers will blank.
They're going to keep going up. I'm going to add an addendum that is, I'm not that mad about it because
Okay.
Because Well, first, the reason, in addition to what everyone else has said, it's correct. I think the fact that the Celtics are winning, like if that is like the fact that this has now been proven to be a championship winning strategy.
That's right.
Versus like the Rockets doing it a couple of years ago. I think even that changes it even more. But I think we're going to, maybe it's the Gen Z in me and being the youngest person here, but I think it's great skill. Like it's not where like we're watching less skilled basketball. Making threes is hard.
It's
the
true.
base percentages are lower. Watching Steph is super fun to watch. Watching someone catch fire from three is super fun to watch. And it's all that will happen. And the only thing that needs to happen is defenses need to adjust. And whether that is aided by a rules change of some sort, whether that's like making it less restrictive on like going around screens and hand checking and stuff like that, you can adjust those rules, or just like naturally forcing a defensive adjustment until some coach out there finds a defense that can contain this. I think it's great. I think it promotes ball movement and driving and kicking and relocating and floor spacing. Yes. Does it look tough at certain points in the regular season? I think season length is a whole different conversation. But as far as just watching people shoot threes, I'm pro all of this. And I think that there is more room for strategic creativity than the leagues and the teams get credit for.
Well, maybe so. When you see the Celtics swing the ball, it looks like it's by design for sure to free someone up for an open three. Heck, they did yesterday. They did a pick and roll behind the 3-point line. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Just to free up Tatum for a three, they did a pick and roll all behind the 3-point line. Fine. When you say, I think you're absolutely right that the Celtics' success will continue to let the trend go upward. The question looms, though, is the Celtics' success tied directly to three-point shooting? It seems like it is because it's such a big part of the game. But if that was not their strategy, could they still be a championship team? Could they accomplish more? The reason I question this trend is because the percentage of three-pointers made NBA across the NBA has not gone up. The Celtics aren't shooting the lights out in terms of percentage. It's kind of always been around somewhere between 35 and 40% is where good three-point shooting teams. So we'll never know. I don't know. I like the Larry Bird blindside pass myself, but I can't deny that you guys did awesome in full court press. So you got me with threes on the brain here. Sorry, Cory. Did you have anything else to add on three-pointers? Or?
No, I like how we go from prep school basketball, skip college, and then go all to NBA questions. You know,
No, you could apply it. You could apply it to any. Is it? I'll ask you this, Cory, before we go. The 3-point phenomenon, is it different in prep than it is at other levels?
Oh, it's just like everywhere else. Everyone's shooting the tar out of it. So
yeah.
But if you can make a three, right, with consistency, that can get you a scholarship. That can get you NIL money. So it can put money in your pocket and change your future. So it's got value.
Some of the stats that you were getting for your awards, like there are some crazy shooters at the prep school level now, which is pretty ridiculous.
And their skill is not catch and shoot. It's like it's every way you can shoot a three.
Yeah,
off of screens and.
Yeah. Just getting
these kids are getting more and more skilled.
Just make a pass every now and again. They do make passes. They do.
Yeah.
You said okay. Very good, gentlemen. Back to you, Steve, to wrap things up.
This was awesome. Cory, appreciate you coming on. This was a great discussion. Sounds like we have even more to unpack. We're gonna have to have you on.
Yeah, we'll bring this back
for another episode at some point. But this is a fun sort of dive into a lot of questions that I feel like families have about the prep school process and what they can expect. So a lot of good stuff. That'll wrap it up for this HoopWise podcast episode. For producer Dave, for Ethan, thank you, Cory, again for joining us. I'm Steve Hewitt, and we'll catch you next time.